A young couple stands in the kitchen of their very first home. The smell of fresh paint is still in the air, and sunlight bounces off the brand new countertops. Around them, family members are clapping and smiling, offering warm hugs. The realtor waves from across the room, and a lender gives a big nod of approval. Looking at the final paperwork, the monthly mortgage payment is only slightly higher than what they used to pay in rent. Everything about this moment feels perfect. It feels like they have finally made it. But here is the part that nobody ever mentions. The day many people become homeowners is also the day they quietly stop building wealth. Everyone loves to argue about renting versus buying. Real estate agents will tell you that buying a house is the ultimate way to build wealth. On the other side, lifelong renters will argue that homeownership is nothing but a giant financial trap. Most of the advice you find online is based on just one simple number. That monthly mortgage payment. I am Noah, and today we're going to do something almost nobody in this conversation actually does. We're going to run the complete math. We are not looking at the marketing math, the realtor math, or the your home is an investment math. We're looking at the real math. There's a massive difference between being able to qualify for a house and buying a house that actually makes you richer. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which choice builds more wealth and why the answer is probably not what you have been told. What is the very first number people compare when they're trying to decide whether to rent or buy? Almost every single time, it is the monthly mortgage payment. This is the number that dominates every conversation around the dinner table, every online calculator, and every meeting with a bank. It makes sense why we focus on it. It is a big, clear number that pops up right at the top of the paperwork, and it is the exact amount of money that leave your bank account each month. Because it looks so straightforward, people immediately hold it up against their current monthly rent. If their rent is $1,500 and the mortgage payment is $1,600, they think, hey, for just $100 more, I can own a home. But this is exactly where the big problem begins. The monthly mortgage payment is actually only one single line item on a very long receipt. When people compare rent directly to a mortgage payment, they're making a massive mistake. They're looking at the wrong numbers because they should be comparing rent to the total cost of ownership. Renting a home is simple. Your rent is the absolute maximum amount of money you will pay for housing that month. If the roof starts to leak, the landlord pays for it. If the water heater bursts, the landlord fixes it. But when you buy a house, your mortgage payment is actually the absolute minimum amount of money you will pay that month. On top of that payment, you have property taxes, homeowners insurance, neighborhood fees, and the constant cost of fixing things that break. By only looking at the mortgage, the entire debate starts with the wrong number. It causes people to buy homes they think they can afford, only to find out later that their bank accounts are completely empty. If we want to understand the truth about wealth, we have to look at all the hidden numbers that the realtors leave out. So let's build a real number. Let us look at a real example so you can see exactly how this happens. Imagine you decide to buy a nice, average house for $500,000. You are smart, so you save up 20% of that price, which is $100,000 to use as your down payment. You go to the bank, get a standard loan, and the realtor tells you your monthly mortgage payment for principal and interest will be about $2,400. That seems totally fine. But now let's start stacking up the hidden costs that nobody warned you about. First, you have to pay property taxes to your city every single year. That adds another $400 a month. Now your running total is $2,800. Next comes homeowners insurance to protect the house from fires or storms, adding another $150. Your total crawls up to $2,950. Then you find out the house is in a neighborhood with a homeowners association or HOA. They charge an extra $250 a month just to take care of the community gate and the local park. Your monthly total hits $3,200. But we are not done yet. Houses constantly wear down, so you must set aside a maintenance reserve for routine things like painting and lawn care, plus an extra repair fund for big emergencies like a broken refrigerator or a cracked pipe. Together, that adds another $400 every single month. Your total just jumped to $3,600. Now, think back to when you bought the house. You had to pay thousands of dollars in closing costs to the bank and lawyers. If you spread that cost across the years you plan to live there, it equals about another $100 a month. Our total is up to $3,700. Finally, remember that $100,000 you used for the down payment? If you had kept that money in the stock market instead, it would be earning you cash every month. By locking it up in the house, you miss out on about $400 a month in growth. When you add everything together, your actual monthly total is $4,100. That is $1,700 more than the payment you were promised. That is not a house payment anymore. That is a second lifestyle. Most people look at the housing market and believe a very simple idea. If my home value goes up, my wealth goes up. It sounds like a sure thing. If you buy a house today for $500,000 and sell it 20 years from now for $800,000, it feels like you just made a massive $300,000 profit. You feel like a financial genius. But this is what we call the wealth illusion, and it happens because most people completely forget to calculate what it actually costs to hold on to that asset. Owning a home is not just about watching its price grow on a website. While your house is sitting there quietly gaining value, a group of hidden financial enemies is constantly draining money out of your bank account. First, there's the massive amount of interest you pay to the bank for your loan over 20 years. You often end up paying the bank almost as much as the house itself was worth. Then, you have to add up 20 years of property taxes paid to the city, which rise almost every year. Next, add 2 decades of homeowners insurance payments and the thousands of dollars spent on routine maintenance, like replacing the roof, fixing the plumbing, and painting the walls. Finally, when you are finally ready to sell the house and collect your big prize, you face transaction costs. Real estate agents and closing lawyers will take a huge percentage of your final sale price just to handle the paperwork. When you sit down and subtract all of those extra costs from your $300,000 gain, a shocking truth appears. Most, or even all, of your profit completely vanishes into thin air. Your house can go up hundreds of thousands of dollars in value while your actual wealth barely moves. You did not actually build wealth. You just spent 20 years of funding a very expensive piggy bank that gave you your own money back at the end. Let's look at a real-life couple named Marcus and Taylor. Together, they earn $150,000 a year. In most cities, that sounds like they're doing very well. They feel successful, and they are ready to chase the dream of owning a home. But we have to look at the numbers that actually land in their bank account. After the government takes out taxes and they pay for things like health insurance and their retirement plans, their actual take-home pay is about $8,500 a month. This is the money they have to cover everything in their lives. Now let's subtract the full cost of that house we talked about earlier. When you take out the $4,100 for the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, the repairs, and the fees, they are left with $4,400. That might still sound okay, but remember, they haven't bought a single bag of groceries yet. They haven't paid for their car gas, their cell phone bills, their internet, or their electricity. Once Marcus and Taylor pay for those basic life needs, their pile of cash shrinks even faster. By the time they finish paying for a normal life, they only have a few $100s left at the end of the month to actually save or invest. They own a beautiful home and they have a high income, but they are living paycheck to paycheck. They are one broken water heater away from a financial emergency. Take a second to think about that. They worked hard to earn a great salary, but the house is eating almost all of it. Most people in this situation start to feel a heavy weight in their chest, wondering where all their money went. But here's where it gets ugly. Let's look at exactly what happens to the money Marcus and Taylor have left. They are holding on to $4,400 and the clock is ticking. First, they walk in a grocery store. Buying food for 2 people easily takes $600 a month. Now they have $3,800. Next, they have to get to work, so they fill up their gas tanks and pay for car insurance, which takes another $400. That leaves them with $3,400. But like most people, they're still paying off the past. Marcus has a car payment of $450, and Taylor has a student loan payment of $350. Together, those take away $800. Suddenly, they're down to $2,600. Then come the regular house bills. Electricity, water, internet, and cell phones quickly add up to $500 a month. Now they have $2,100 left. Since they both work full-time, they have to pay for childcare, which costs a massive $1,200 a month. Their pile of cash shrinks to just $900. Now, they have to plan for the future and stay healthy. Medical copays and basic health expenses take $100. They know they need to invest for retirement, so they try to save $500 a month. That leaves them with only $300. Finally, a real emergency happens. The brakes on the car go bad, or they have to visit the dentist. That easily costs $400. Just like that, Marcus and Taylor are in the negative. They spent $100 more than they brought home this month. They have to put that extra cost on a credit card, and the stress starts to build. This is what house poor feels like. It is not one dramatic crisis that ruins your life all at once. It is just thousands of tiny financial compromises every single month. It is saying no to a dinner out with friends, skipping a family vacation, and feeling a knot in your stomach every time the mailbox fills up with bills. You live in a beautiful house, but you are completely trapped inside it. Now that we see how tight things are for Marcus and Taylor, let us reverse engineer the numbers. Let us ask a very important question. What income would this family actually need for this house to feel totally comfortable? To figure this out, we have to look at what financial experts call a safe housing ratio. This rule says that your total housing costs, meaning your mortgage, taxes, insurance, and fees, should never take up more than 28 to 30% of your gross income. Your gross income is the total amount of money you make before any taxes are taken out. Let's work backward from that rule. Since the total cost to own this $500,000 house is about $4,100 every month, we can calculate the real salary needed to support it. To keep that cost under 30% of their budget, Marcus and Taylor would actually need to earn a combined gross income of around $165,000 a year. But remember, that is just the bare minimum. For the home to feel truly comfortable and to stop them from living paycheck to paycheck, their income really needs to be closer to $200,000 a year. Now, let us compare that number to what a normal household actually makes. The median household income for a family is nowhere near $200,000. In fact, most families bring home less than half of that amount each year. When you lay the numbers out like this, the giant gap becomes completely obvious. If buying a normal home and staying financially safe feels impossible to you right now, that is because for most households it is. This is not a personal failure on your part. You're not bad with money, and you're not failing at life. The simple truth is that the math does not work for the majority of buyers in today's market. The traditional dream of homeownership is being sold using old rules that just do not fit our current reality. Now we have reached the most important part of the story. To truly understand if a house is a good deal, we have to look at the path not taken. We have to compare buying that home to a second option, renting a similar place, and investing every extra penny instead. Let's look at the math over 30 years. Imagine Marcus and Taylor decide not to buy the house. Instead, they take that $100,000 they saved for a down payment and put it into a simple index fund that tracks the stock market. Historically, the market grows at about 8% each year. They don't touch that money. They just let it sit and grow. Next, remember that the total cost to own the house was $4,100 a month, but renting a similar home might only cost them $2,800. That leaves them with an extra $1,300 every single month. Instead of spending it, they add that $1,300 to their investment account. At first, the house seems like the winner because it's a big, solid building you can see. But watch what happens to the numbers in the investment account over 30 years. Because of how compound interest works, where your money earns money, and then that new money earns even more, the balance starts to explode. After 30 years, the house might be worth over $1 million. That sounds great until you look at the investment portfolio. By investing the down payment and the monthly savings, Marcus and Taylor will be sitting on a jaw-dropping total of over $3 million. Think about that. Even after paying rent for 30 years, they would have millions of dollars in cash waiting for them. The question isn't whether a house builds wealth. The question is whether it builds more wealth than the alternative. When you look at the real numbers, the safety of owning a home starts to look a lot more like a missed opportunity to become truly wealthy. To help you make the right choice for your own life, let us lay out a simple decision framework. You do not have to guess anymore. Buying a home makes perfect sense when a few things are true. First, you need to plan on staying in that house for at least 7 to 10 years so you can get past the high costs of moving. Second, the total monthly housing costs must fit comfortably within your budget without squeezing you. Third, your retirement investing must already be on track, and you must have a solid emergency fund left over after you pay the down payment. On the other hand, renting is often the smarter choice when the housing market is completely overpriced. It is better to rent when you need flexibility for your job or when buying a house would totally drain your life savings. Most importantly, renting wins when you're disciplined enough to take your extra monthly savings and invest them in the market to create a larger net worth. For decades, society has treated buying a home as the default path to a successful life. We were told it was the only way to build wealth. But financially smart people do not buy houses just because they are supposed to or because their parents told them to. They buy houses only when the numbers actually work. And when those numbers do not work, walking away from a deal is not a loss. In fact, choosing not to buy can be a massive victory for your financial future. Sometimes, the smartest wealth-building move you will ever make is the purchase you never make.